You're listening to The KYLO Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. In this first episode of 2022, Danny and Brittney continued their conversation about honor. So, if you want to learn more about virtues and how to develop a character of honor, then this episode's for you, and it starts right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the KYLO Show. We are jumping in, continuing this honor series, and
we're in the new year.
we are, which means we're out of our pajamas.
That's it. We're all uncomfortable again.
We are got our turtlenecks on and having fun. But we are kind of matching today.
We are.
I feel like they've coordinated things that we didn't know they were doing on purpose.
It's true.
Our wonderful wardrobe assistant, a.k.a. Anna.
Yeah. Our wardrobe director.
Yes. We could come up with all sorts of...
Our director of costume. Yes.
We need to have like a credits roll at the end.
Yes.
Of all the things. It would just say Anna, Ashley, and occasionally Taylor.
And
Christian. We do a lot with just a small team.
That's true.
All I'm getting at here. But this episode is about we need a revival in virtue.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that I use the word virtue very often.
Yeah. It is kind of an outdated word in our current vocabulary, but it's...
What would be the equivalent right now? I mean...
well, I don't think anybody's using it much, but it's very akin to the word honor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it fits right in here then in our honor series.
Yep, our honor series. Bringing back virtue really is about identifying key characteristics that we will value and protect to our core. We will not allow these to be infringed upon in our behavior.
That is long gone.
And so to be a person who is virtuous is someone who's consistent in their character. That's identifiable. Like, okay, and in this case, it's really protecting the things that you know are important to God. Like it's spelled out for you in the Bible. These things are clearly important to God. And so my life is really about living in such a way that I am protecting the heart of my Father because I'm protecting my relationship with my Father. Yeah. So I know what's important to Him, so I adjust all my options to protect Him.
Which I feel like you're just laying it on the table today of this is virtue. And I have to say there's a lot of lack of virtue in a lot of areas.
Yeah, it's as though we have abandoned the heart of the Father, which is really the only thing in my mind, the only thing that will steer us towards revival is that the Father's heart becomes important to us again.
I just think about how easy it is to create an excuse of, oh, I know that, the Lord will forgive me. I mean, it was a bad day today. Mm-hmm. There's just so much justification in leaving core values and reattaching to them every now and then, leaving core values and virtue and this life that's convicted of this is what I'm called to do and how I'm going to live. It's this optional visit every now and then.
And we treat each other that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we treat our marriage that way. We treat our friendships like that. We treat our children like this. We treat ourselves like this. Like, I am not consistent. I am not disciplined. I am not determined. I am impulsive and immature and selfish and afraid.
Yeah.
And so you make all kinds of excuses for how you're going to behave when that's how you decide to stay.
Yikes.
It's true. It's true. It is scary. It is
Guys, I'm being convicted on the KYLO Show right now. That's what's happening. I have my own conviction of, oh, yeah, there is too much justification in little things. I mean, social media definitely can win in my morning instead of cracking open the Bible first.
Yeah, and
I don't even really care about it. It just happens.
it's not it's less about maybe religious disciplines and more about a sensitivity to how my life and my decisions affect my father, affect other people around me. Like, Sherry and I, we've been married a long time, right? So,
I can tell you exactly how long you've lived.
yeah,
Been married.
a year longer than you've been
would
on this
say-
planet,
Been around almost the whole time, guys.
And I think that the momentum of our life together is, I know what's going to hurt her.
Yeah.
I know what's going to please her. I know what's going to encourage her. I know what's going to discourage her. Mm-hmm. So I have limited out of all the options that I could just behave.
Yeah.
My drop-down menu's got way fewer options on it than it did when we first got together, because
Trial and error in some, and just with
young man
another.
disorder ruled. You are not going to control me. I'm free. You can't tell me what to. You're not my mother. I had 90 things on my list of things I could do without consequence, without an awareness, a sensitivity, a respect of what does it look like to honor her. And now I understand, okay, here they are right here. And same come in this direction. She has the same with me. Like, I know this is not going to go well, or, okay, this is going to up my odds of having a hard conversation if I limit my behavior and my options to these here. Like, right, that's the same kind of thing. Maturity is a self-control thing, but it really comes from committing yourself to virtue.
So how does this work when you don't have a mature person that you're communicating with on the other side of this?
Well, it's hard to stay out of parenting that relationship.
That's what's coming to mind is...
Yeah, because that's who you're dealing with when you're dealing with a child, is somebody who isn't bringing the level of maturity that you're supposed to be bringing. Sometimes parents just chuck it out the door. Yeah. I'll meet you at 2.
Yeah.
You,
I can do that
2-year-old
too.
to 2-year-old. Okay, come on, bring it.
Yeah.
So that kind of gets drilled out of you, though. As a parent, you eventually realize, oh my gosh, my poor first child. I learned all this stuff on my poor first child.
I tell Delaney that often.
I'm sorry, honey. Yeah. One of the things that happens when you don't bring a lot of virtue, like consistent character strength that defines your behavior, is you begin to just pretend that you have it, because it's supposed to be there, but you don't have it, so you just...
It's not developed. It's not a...
Yeah, so you see all these things that seem like that's the thing to do. We're going to protect women who are going to come out and tell the truth about being sexually exploited by their powerful employers or whatever. Yeah, we're going to rally behind that if they're of the same politics as we are. Because if other women do that, they we'll be quiet about that. We won't say anything. So that feels like virtue signaling, but it doesn't seem like it's consistent. It feels hypocritical. We begin to jump on the bandwagon of whatever everybody says is popular right now.
That feels like virtue.
Yeah, it feels like that's the right thing to do. That's the right thing to say. That's the right thing to support. Everybody's doing it. Me too. Here's my square on my social media. Here's the pray for that place right now. You're like, okay, that's just signaling. You're just pretending to have that virtue. But when we look past it very far, we find that, you don't have anything there that would lead you to sacrifice your comfort level, your options, you in anything. You won't sacrifice anything for that. I mean, if we run around going, abortion is murder, abortion is bad, we're screaming it, but we're not open to foster care or adoption or change, being there to be part of, because there's
Supporting.
or just part of the solution to this, then here we go, just another virtue signal that we've shot off into space.
Which feels like it's easy to do.
It's super easy to do.
I mean, how do you not get sucked into the trap of participating in what feels like the right thing to do, but without the conviction of maybe the sacrifice that's required to go with it?
I think that is part of the breakdown in virtue, is that we start to behave like politics and that sort of thing is a solution. Like that thing that you offered is a solution. Instead of realizing it's a trade-off. We're gonna trade the way we live now to solve this problem over here, and it's going to cost us to do that. We're going to have to actually we're going to pay attention to what the so-called solution actually costs us. Going buying that new F-250 is a solution to my problem. Actually, no, it's a trade-off. It's going to cost you something to buy that brand new truck. What's it going to cost you? Nothing. I'm going to put it on a loan. I'm just going to, okay, what's it going to cost you? Nothing. Payments aren't due for 2 months. What's it going to cost you? What's the trade-off for finding that as your solution? That's reality. And those decisions are based in responsibility and courage and sacrifice. Wisdom is in there. But when you pretend like you can just throw your credit card out there and there's no consequence, well, that's based in impulsivity, self-preservation, and fear.
It is definitely a bit of a hard pill to swallow, because there's so many opportunities where I feel like I'm trying to help be part of a solution, but I don't know maybe the cost or the weight of a sacrifice. I mean, I know it in parenting. I feel it in parenting, and my core values and what I want the consistent message for my life to be. That's an easy given, but I do have a heart for these other things. But the trap is I don't willingly look at, okay, now what is required to partner and make that part of how I'm going to live my life. And that is social media makes it easy to just go, oh yeah, amen. It's like an amen in a sermon that I'm going to leave and I actually don't apply. That's what this feels like in the participation of, it's a feel good for me rather than a sacrifice of, this is who I'm called to be and called to live.
Yeah. And when Jesus goes after the Pharisees, for standing on the street corner to pray so everybody sees him do it, he says, you just received your reward. You got your reward from the applause of man. Go pray in quiet, alone, where nobody sees you. That's virtue. That is tapping your character, because you really are living in such a way that I am on a trek to please God, not people. And that's the differentiator, is how much of your so-called virtue do you do privately?
And I have to imagine that this act of virtue and really seeking after living it, but it becoming part of who you are, it just at some place manifests in your life. And when it's not behind closed doors, there's not really fruit, or this fruit is malnourished or poorly developed. It doesn't even actually really achieve what you're trying to get it to achieve. You get into a situation that's over your head because you sound good until they need you to walk through this problem with them, and don't have anything to actually pull on.
Right. So 1 John says, if you say that you love God, but you hate your brother, you're a liar. You're like, whoa, back up. What? God, and my relationship with God is great. It's these crazy people you've surrounded me with that's what I stumble there. Like, actually, what you learned in private, what you learned in secret, the fruit of it is how you interact with difficult people. Because that's your virtue, that's your strength. That's what sets you apart, is you can deal with human beings from the strength that you've cultivated in the secret place. And that's got to show up.
Yeah.
We have
The 7.
some of these virtues that we would probably classically in traditional church history, I'll say, we have love, hope, faith, wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage.
Temperance. Temperance, another word we don't use very often.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of jumped around that one, but it's key to have pillars. You know, when Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 9, says that wisdom has hewn out her 7 pillars. Like, that's where the 7 pillars of healthy relationships came from. This is more, they're similar. Many of them are similar, but, seeing people as God sees them is really the love. Like, can you do that? Can you actually respond to people? Can you keep them?
Can you keep your love on?
Valuable, right? Can you keep your love on?
Is that what your plug was?
Can you keep your love on? Exactly. It's right there. It's this will be tested the first time somebody scares you, hurts you, or leaves you feeling powerless.
Well, this is why children are so hard and being married.
Super challenging. Hope is basically, I actually believe that God's going to work everything out for good.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And go back to that.
He's going to work this out for good. God is good and never has an off day.
God is good all the time.
And all the time.
God is good.
There you go. Boom. Faith is essentially, will I live a life of loyalty to what I know God needs, wants, requires of me, no matter what it's going to cost me, even unto death.
You had a message about that not too long ago.
Oh gosh, that's something that we got away from, but it's true. Wisdom, it's really
not my wisdom.
it's really, will I do it God's way? Yeah. Will I pick the world's way, or will I pick God's way? Because that's wisdom. That's what separates godly wisdom from earthly, and it's so cool. Justice is probably a huge deal. You know, the idea of justice is so much about repentance, reconciliation, restoration, whereas earthly justice is about suffering, punishment, and control.
That word justice has gone
wacky
to the extreme opposite of what it really is designed to be.
Yeah. And so social justice is really a mob. It's just a mob mentality. It has nothing to do with justice.
Yeah. Not at all.
Somehow you're... And
they're even unsatisfied when it is biblical justice.
Yeah.
That isn't it. That's not what we want.
Yeah, it's about restoration.
Yeah.
Restoration, a restored love. If you, to take calamity and huge injustice and to turn it into restored love, that's heaven's justice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Temperance really is about moderation, a relationship with the objects in your life that...
your cell phone.
Yeah, yeah. Your cell phone, your wine, your car, even your relationships. You know, they're there for you to interact with them in a way that is healthy and flourishing, rather than demoralizing, consuming slavery. You know, and so it's the difference between healthy and addiction,
Yeah.
and it's all coming from temperance. And then courage. Courage is probably the kahuna. The big virtue of all this is, will you sacrifice what is necessary to protect these things? Will you engage the mechanism? You know,
It feels like courage is required in order to have the others.
it is. I think there are numerous quotes where courage is the ladder upon which all the rest of the virtues hang.
Wow. Well, it's a good lineup for if you didn't know what virtue we were looking for with virtue.
Getting a revival of that action going on, that'll change the world.
Yep,
Yep. We just need a little virtue.
we do. Virtues in
Minus the
family.
signaling.
No signals.
Minus the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Live it or leave it.
Find some courage. I guess start there.
Yep.
So the others can thrive. But this is great. I love the practical breakdown of what the virtues you are chasing after and to develop in your life. And I'm excited to see that come out in our families and what it produces. Something fabulous.
It takes guts
Yeah.
to be a
To go
virtuous
against-
human.
It's definitely going against the normal, against the
Pop.
grain, the wave. I mean the stream. It is an uphill drive of what are you doing? Why are you doing it like that?
Yeah.
Isn't that inconvenient? Don't you hate that? It is. There's lots of those in there. But it is so. I know for our family, there's some key places that we have gone against the stream of things, and I'm excited because I love what I see that's happening.
Yeah.
So there's been lots of courage in that. I guess I would encourage you to be
Massive.
courageous, for sure. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, we're gonna jump into questions.
Yes, here we go.
And yeah, should be fun. See you soon.
Hey, KYLO Show listeners, we want to take a small break just to thank you for being listeners. Thank you. We launched the KYLO Show back in March of last year, and at this point, we are getting over 10,000 downloads a week. It is honoring and super humbling. We believe that whole, healthy families are going to save the world. And if you believe that too, here's how you can help. You can pause the show right now and go give us a rating and review on the podcast. When you do this, it helps more people find us so that we can spread this message and have a greater impact. So go ahead, pause the show right now. It's okay, give it a quick pause, go over, give us a rating and review. It'd be super helpful and we'd greatly appreciate it. So go ahead and do that now.
All right. So we're gonna jump into questions.
Okay.
And if you have a question for us or a testimony, make sure you give them to us. We want them.
Call it in.
We need them. So you're going to do that at thekyloshow.com, which is fun. You can record it. Tell us your real name, your fake name, your middle name. I don't know. I don't care. Just please send us some questions. We love it. All right. The first question we have, though, comes from Ray.
Hi, Danny and Brittney. Thanks for doing this show. One of my goals for this new year is to work on solidifying my core values and my core convictions. And I feel like the last few years have been a pressure cooker that's trying to force us all to compromise. I definitely feel like I've given in a bit to the pressure. So I guess my question would be is what is the best way for me to strengthen my core values and hold on to my convictions? Thanks for any help.
The pressure cooker.
Mm.
I think he's right on with that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that.
It's true, and the social pressure has been intense. You know, I think that it's we'll see where it goes. I don't really know where all this is going to end up, but you definitely can see which direction it's pushing, right? But there's increasing numbers of people that are saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And I think that a lot of folks are discovering that they're not surrounded by that. There's no support for that. So the intensity of threat and even super uncomfortable consequences, such as losing your career, are the decisions that you're having to make. And so that feels like, you know, you've been working out on the bench press at 225 and somebody puts 400 pounds on there. And you're like, how am I going to do this? Well, you're probably not going to do it by yourself. You're going to have help. You're going to have some really strong spotters that just pick up the ends, and you're like, wow, that was a lot. We probably shouldn't do that twice. And I would recommend that you surround yourself with people who share your core values so that you can draw from their strength and not just be isolated. Because if you are just isolated, that 400 pounds is going to crush you.
Yeah.
You're not going to get off the rack, you know. You're not. You're just going to lay there and feel defeated.
No. That hopelessness is such a convincer to give in. And it does feel like it's loud, as you know, just in the last couple of years. I know there have been many times where our core values are questioned or pushed on, and you know, when you're leading a family and feel like you're going against the wave on this, or upstream versus downstream, because it doesn't feel right, it gets kind of confusing in, can I still be honoring? Because what I'm receiving is really disrespectful. And so the only place I feel that you can actually have a conversation if I match that. But then I feel awful. I feel like I've done a horrible job of displaying these virtues and living honorably, because that's what I believe to do. And so I would just challenge that every time you have that pushback, that honor never has to leave. Because whether you match that intensity, are they even going to hear you? No, but what you walked away with is a residue of, oh man, I compromised myself. But if you can lean into, I know what my values are, and I know what I'm called to live and what my assignments are, there comes such clarity. So spending your time in the beginning of this year just seeking after what is my assignment, and what are my core values that are unwavered, and how do I live and operate in honor and bring that in these potentially hard situations.
Yeah. I think another reframe of this whole thing is that it feels like, what would you do if you were in high school?
Yeah, we talked about that.
You know, what would you do if you were in high school? Because this feels like social media, just the craziness going on in the world today, feels like we're all trapped in high school. Like, I can't get out of high school. Oh my gosh, those popular people are so mean, and they rule everything, and everything goes their way. And
there's less of them than
and
everybody
they think
else.
I'm a freak because I'm a Christian. Oh my gosh, and they make fun of me in class. And what am I going to do? I mean, it's that kind of constant, barrage of deriding people who disagree, or who do hold virtues that other people think are just judgments, or make you think like you're better than everybody else. What would you tell your teenager in high school to do, and then follow your advice?
Because it's pretty close to the same world we're living in.
It's right on.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I think that's a good question, Ray. And the more you can clarify and lock into what you're saying yes to, the easier it is to say no to everything else. And then that's really what you've got to do. with clarity and direction. So good question. Praying for you. Best of luck on that discovery and holding true to the revival of virtue that we're talking about today.
There we go.
All right, we've got another question that comes from Delilah.
Hey, Danny and Brittney. Thank you so much for doing the KYLO show. In this social media infused world we are living in, I'm shocked to see that people that used to hold firm to a specific conviction, and now I see them posting the opposite view. It feels they are compromising to fit in and not be quote unquote canceled. My heart is sad to see this. My question is, should I confront these issues when I see friends post on social media? Thank you for your time.
We are in the locker room.
Oh, true wisdom is knowing what not to post on social media.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always go back with this question. The social media, this is who I thought you were, this is how you're acting. Good place to check in first is, what's my goal of this conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Because if my goal is to convict you, I don't know that you're going to get that.
Mm-hmm.
If my goal is to change your mind, if my goal is to tell you that you're wrong, that you're not representing Jesus.
Or me.
Uh-huh. Which is usually who I think Jesus is me and him are the same. We totally think the same. That would be the first place I would check in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know that it's going to go very well if you really don't have the goal to understand. And then follow up with, how necessary is this conversation? Is it something that's really influencing a intimate relationship with you, a close friend, or is this someone that's a few circles out from your world and I don't even have the relational pull to have this conversation?
Yeah, and I think that social media is a fake stage. It's just fake. There's so much that goes into the idea that you are powerful out there. You're not. It's kind of like those those fights on the playground. Like fight. Everybody gathers around, and it's this scuffle, and then it dissipates, it vaporizes, and nothing really changed that day except maybe those two people that were hurting each other. I think that the KYLO principles: be powerful, don't be powerless. You don't have to change this person's point of view. Win the battle of love and fear, which is essentially keep your love on, and keep the goal of connection. Because Delilah just said, "I see a friend post." Okay, if this is a friend, then text her, or text them or whatever. If it's a friend, then keep the goal of connection, and then be respectful in your communication, driving anxiety down while you communicate. And then maybe on the other side of this person now thinks something totally contrary to you. All right, this might be the day boundaries enter your relationship. Okay, I guess I'm not following you or whatever. I'll remove that from the agitation of seeing that on my social media. But manage you through the whole process so that 5 years from now you look back and go, I handled that well.
And friend, I love your word friend, because friend in social media language could be 5,000 people that I'm not really friends with. But if you have their number, then maybe they're more of a real friend.
Yeah, if they're your friend, you have their number.
Yeah. And it is so easy to get sucked into the drama of trying to bring what we described as justice earlier.
Yeah.
And it does not produce anything in your life that you actually usually want to take root. So be mindful of that. And
so let me go back to real wisdom is knowing what not to post on social media.
Yes. Good point. All right. That's great questions. Love it. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our testimony.
Here we go.
So, should be fun.
All right, did you give us a rating review last break? If you did, thank you. If you didn't, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and pause right now, go give a rating or review. Another thing you can do that would be super helpful is just share the show. You can share one of our social media posts about the show to your social media, or you can send one of the episodes to a friend or family member. This helps us get the word out and spread the news that whole, healthy families are going to save the world. So if you believe that too, give us a rating and review and share the show with somebody.
All right, we're going to jump into the testimony. And this testimony comes from Erin.
Hi, Danny and Brittney. It's Erin from Louisiana. I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing the KYLO show. I have enjoyed every week this dose of KYLO encouragement, and it has kept me on my KYLO journey and kept me encouraged and fueled. So thank you so much. I wanted to share a testimony with you about a super practical KYLO tool that my husband and I implemented in our marriage pretty early on in our KYLO journey, which is the iMessage. In the beginning, before we got the KYLO message, we had a pretty dysfunctional and painful dynamic in our communication about telling the other about themselves and the changes they needed to make, which never brought the connection and the loving being increased in that moment. It was really a painful dynamic that we had. So again, early on in our KYLO journey, we were in the process of rebuilding trust and working on our communication skills. And I remember the day this happened because it was so impactful for us and for me. We tell this testimony and we both can just be brought right back to that moment because it changed everything for us and it changed everything in our communication. We were discussing an issue. I remember right where I was standing and where he was sitting in the moment. And we knew the issue had a real high potential for escalation and could go one of two ways. And I remember feeling that, which way is it going to go? And in the moment, and I wish I could remember who did it, but I don't remember who started, but I do remember we each shared an iMessage based on the issue we were discussing. And we both shared the I feel when and I need to feel. And in that moment, we both realized something shifted. Our whole culture shifted. Our whole dynamic of communication shifted in that moment because the way it had typically gone we would have been disconnected. And in that moment, we realized, we looked at each other and said, we just worked through an issue in 5 minutes, which normally would have taken us an hour or so, and it would have been heated and really felt bad going through it. And so it was just a really pivotal moment for us in our culture. And again, in the shift that we felt, we both felt so empowered and it changed our communication. We actually, and I know for me, I could see the power of vulnerability and being willing to take the risk in that moment, and everything changed. So in this season, not that we do it perfectly all the time, but it really has become how we communicate and who we are. And so I just wanted to share that testimony and encourage others. And again, just thank you both for what you're doing and the message that you're getting out. Thank you so much. And I hope this brings hope and encouragement to others.
Well, that's Erin, the other end of Rusty, which is, they're just a great little couple.
They are.
Rusty gave testimony last time, and Erin is sharing this time, and they have just done an amazing job of making it a practice in their life, and I love it. I love watching those two be super successful in their marriage and their relationship and all the different relationships around them. So.
Erin is so gentle and kind, and
so
Rusty must just spend most of his time feeling like a bad guy whenever he hurts her feelings, or is, that would disconnect. He's like, "What'd I do? What did I do?" She's just such a treat.
Yeah, the iMessages That's a great tool. It's so easy to get locked on telling somebody else about them instead of telling them about you.
You know, iMessages are not original with KYLO. You know, that
You
came
get a lot
from,
of credit for that.
I do. You know, that came out of working with addicts. You know, I don't remember if it was Al-Anon or probably some, you know, Carl Rogers or Carl Jung or somebody introduced something about self-disclosure or whatever. I don't know. I really don't. Somebody should research that and tell us. But I definitely, we don't get credit for that. We just use it and put it in a process that I think is super helpful. And yeah, you can reduce your conflicts down to 5 minutes, you know, which is, if you're talking for 20 minutes about something, you're doing it wrong.
And if you continue on for 3 hours, you're really doing it wrong.
You're really doing some damage.
You're doing a lot of damage. But that is a testimony to know the moment where they kind of changed their relationship dynamic. That's kind of fun to kind of have in your memory bank of, this is the moment where we chose to take the different path.
Yeah, that worked. We should try it again, because that
keep
other
going.
thing we're doing while we're disconnected, we try to talk. That's a bad idea.
It's not working so well. Oh, that's so great. Love Erin and Rusty and all that they're doing and helping other couples too with this. And they have such a tender, sweet disposition to them, and they do a really good job of nurturing people and helping them with
makeawaymarriage.com and on Instagram. Follow them. They are beloved of Loving on Purpose. We love these guys.
We do. Well, hopefully you feel encouraged that you can take some very simple KYLO tool and put it in practically and reduce your arguing, hopefully, from 20 minutes to 5 minutes like Erin and Rusty have. So, such a good thing. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the KYLO Show.
And remember to revive virtue and all those elements that I won't repeat, but it is super valuable and important that we get back to living from our heart, living from our courage, and not simply just trying to get ourselves to will something, but being motivated from deep within our soul to be the same person, stay the same person, and really protect the heart of God.
Because whole, healthy families have virtue.
Yes.
And they're going to save the world. So join us next time on the KYLO Show.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to join us next week when Danny and Brittney talk about building generational momentum and creating a family legacy that lasts. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The KYLO Show is produced by Ali Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck, Anna Hill, Leah Alexander, Jerry Silk, sound engineer and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Krishna Zamora. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.